All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of history's absolute most fascinating transformations. We're looking at the story of a guy who tried with everything he had to run away from his destiny, only to turn right around and embrace it with his very life. His name was Zuhayr ibn al-Qayn, and honestly, his journey is just a masterclass in courage, conviction, and the sudden, overwhelming power of truth.
So, think about this for a second. What if the single most important decision of your entire life came at a moment when you were literally trying your hardest to avoid it? It's a pretty wild thought, right? Well, as our source material reveals, Zuhair was not originally traveling to join Imam Hussain. In fact, historical reports tell us he was trying incredibly hard not to meet him. This wasn't a guy out seeking a rebellion or looking to get his name in the history books. He just wanted to go home. He wanted his comfortable life. And yet, that intense avoidance makes his ultimate sacrifice all the more powerful. It goes to show us that true heroes aren't always born ready. Sometimes they're forged in one single, unavoidable moment.
Section 1. The Reluctant Traveler. Let's look at exactly who Zuhayr was. To really get the weight of this journey, you've got to understand where he started. Zuhayr was a highly respected, noble man from the Bajila tribe over in Kufa, and he'd actually fought in some earlier battles. He had status, a family, the whole shebang. But spiritually and politically, he was not aligned with Imam Hussain. The sources describe him as having Uthmani leanings. Now, what that means is he was a lot more sympathetic to the political memory of Uthman ibn Affan. He was absolutely not counted among the Shia, or the political followers of Imam Ali's household. Basically, Zuhair wasn't some prepackaged hero waiting in the wings to join Imam Hussein's cause.
And this setup just brilliantly captures the crazy tension of the year 60 AH. On one hand, you have Imam Hussain leaving Mecca, journeying toward Iraq after refusing to give his allegiance to Yazid. And at the exact same time, you've got Zuhair and his caravan returning from the Hajj pilgrimage, heading toward Kufa. You literally have two caravans moving in parallel through this vast desert, and it's completely altering the course of history. It's almost cinematic when you picture it. Two massive destinies moving across the exact same sands, just inching closer and closer together.
Now, the way Zuhair went out of his way here is just wild. You know how you might duck down an aisle to avoid a neighbor at the grocery store? Well, scale that up to a giant desert. Whenever Imam Hussein's caravan stopped, Zuhair's group made it a literal point to stop somewhere else. If Imam Hussein's camp got closer, Zuhair actively backed away. He chose avoidance over confrontation every single time. He definitely wasn't looking for a defining moment. But as we're going to see, destiny doesn't really care if you're ready or not. Section 2. One unexpected invitation. Destiny finally knocks.
So, the desert is huge, but it can only keep two caravans apart for so long. Eventually, at one of the stops, they ended up camping right near each other. The exact moment Zuhair had been trying so hard to avoid had finally arrived at his front door. Zuhair and his companions were just sitting around, eating a meal, when suddenly a messenger from Imam Hussain walks right into the tent. And the messenger didn't bring an army or make some grand demand. He simply stated that Imam Hussain wanted to meet Zuhair. When that happened, the sources tell us the tent fell completely silent. Just imagine the heavy, awkward, deafening silence in that room. No one knew what to do. The guy who had spent his entire trip running away was now being directly called upon. And into that deafening silence steps a total game changer, his wife, Dalam Bant Amr. She looks at her husband and just delivers this piercing truth. She says, "The grandson of the messenger of Allah has called you. How could you hesitate to answer?" Man, those words just shattered his hesitation. She reminded him of the undeniable reality of who was actually calling him, completely cutting through all his political leanings and his desire for a comfortable life. It was exactly the push he needed to finally stop running and just accept the meeting.
Moving on to Section 3, a conscious, life-altering choice, the transformation.
So, Zuhair goes to this private meeting. And look, we don't actually know the exact words Imam Hussain said to him in private, but we absolutely know the result. Zuhair walked out of there a completely changed man. He immediately took 3 massive, decisive steps. First, he ordered his tent to be moved closer to Imam Hussein's camp, quite literally severing his past hesitation. Second, he sent his wife back to her family to make sure she'd be protected from the danger he now knew was coming. And third, he turned to his companions and gave them a completely free choice to join him or to walk away. No pressure whatsoever. This was a conscious, eyes-wide-open choice.
When you put his before and after states side by side, it is just night and day. Before that brief meeting, he was distant, he was hesitant, and he just wanted comfort. Afterward, He emerged fully committed, totally decisive, and completely ready for sacrifice. Zuhayr understood perfectly well what joining Imam Hussain meant. He wasn't hopping on the bandwagon of a winning political campaign. He was giving up his status and his safety for a path that meant standing with the truth, even though he knew for a fact the cost would be his own life.
Section 4. The Stand at Karbala.
Once he made his choice, Zuhayr went all in. He became one of Imam Hussein's most trusted, fiercely loyal companions on the plains of Karbala. Get this, on the night before Ashura, Imam Hussain gathered his companions and actually gave them permission to leave under the cover of darkness. He completely freed them from any obligation to stay. But Zuhayr, he stood his ground. He proclaimed, "If I were killed, brought back to life, and killed again 1,000 times, I would still choose to protect you." I mean, wow. This is the exact same guy who, just days before, was mapping out detours through the desert just to avoid saying hello. The transformation is just absolute. And he absolutely backed those words up with incredible action on the day of Ashura. Imam Hussain placed him in charge of the right wing of the army, pairing him with Habib ibn Muzahir on the left wing. That shows an immense level of trust. During the battle, Zuhayr played these really critical tactical roles. Like when Shimran's men tried to launch a sneak attack on the tents from the rear, Zuhayr was right there to fight them off. And when Imam Hussain and the companions stood for the noon prayer, Zuhayr acted as a literal human shield, protecting them from a barrage of arrows. He fought with unbelievable bravery right up until he was martyred on the battlefield. Which brings us to Section 5, Legacy and Historical Honesty. Now, when we look back at historical heavyweights like Zuhayr, we've got to make sure we're relying on sources with real integrity. The earliest, most reliable accounts actually don't give us a lot of detailed information about what happened to Zuhayr's descendants after Karbala. You might see some later accounts mentioning his family, but we really don't have strong early evidence to make confident claims about his surviving lineage. And as the source material for this explainer points out, that kind of historical honesty really matters. We don't need to exaggerate or invent history to find immense value in it. The factual truth of Zuhayr's sacrifice, that journey from pure hesitation to absolute loyalty, that's more than powerful enough on its own. Finally, Section 6, Timeless Lessons for Today. So why does a story from the year 60 AH matter to us right now? Well, because truth doesn't need perfect people, it just needs sincere hearts. Zuhayr was not born into his defining moment as the perfect, flawless supporter. He didn't start out as the obvious hero of the story. He avoided it. He kept his distance. But when the truth finally stood right in front of him, he didn't let his past define his future. He changed. It just shows us that the greatest people in history aren't always the ones who never hesitated. They are the ones who recognized the truth when it finally called and actually had the guts to answer it. And that leaves us with one pretty heavy final thought. You are not trapped by who you were yesterday. You aren't limited by your previous assumptions or your comfort zone or your past choices. Just one sincere decision can completely redirect your entire life. So the question this explainer leaves you with is this: what are you going to do when your moment of truth arrives? Think about that for a bit. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the incredible history of Zuhayr ibn al-Qayn.